Georgio celebrity check. Tune in now, folks, we need to talk about this. Tune in now, folks, we need to talk about this. Tune in now, folks, we need to talk about this. Georgio says it's time for Georgio celebrity check. Tune in now, folks, we need to talk about this. Georgio says it's time for Georgio celebrity check.
All right, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Yes, the snow is slowly melting away here in the DMV. I hope everyone's doing very well today. If you can't tell by the title, we're still discussing the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni of it all. But today I'm breaking down the PR strategy, the power dynamics, all of that based on both parties and how they present themselves publicly, meaning their branding, all of that, how that's playing into how they are dealing with the situation. So, but before that, I am going to go over some quick tea just for the Bravo world, because there is a couple things. I know the other day, or yesterday I think it was, where I discussed the Jennifer Aiden disaster in the airport at Jersey Mike's and how atrocious she is, and I didn't even want to talk about her, frankly. But a lot of people were like, what are your thoughts? And so I gave my thoughts yesterday, and obviously no shocker here, but she was supposed to be a part of this, I think it's fan at sea or fans at sea situation, where they go on a cruise and you basically get to buy a ticket to be on this cruise. And so it was Dolores initially, Teresa, and Jennifer Aiden. But because of the situation at the Jersey Mike's in the airport, which, by the way, I can't get over the fact that she ordered a tuna fish sandwich or sub at 7 in the morning. Anyways, let's first of all, let's get into my intro, and then we'll do this the right way, okay?
We need to talk about this. Every rumor, every twist on the Georgio Says podcast. We need to talk about So hit that play, stay in the know. Georgio's here to steal the show. On the Georgio Says podcast, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this.
All right. So obviously, let's first talk Bravo news. Good thing is we have new episodes of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills airing tonight. And yes, I have been playing catch up on Roni because, as I mentioned yesterday, you guys are asking me where the recaps are. And as I mentioned, I stopped watching. Yes, I did. It's probably a first, because usually I can grin and bear it through a season. But I am catching up. There is a new episode airing tonight, so I will get caught up and start recapping that for you guys. But I am excited. There is an all-new episode of Beverly Hills. We are still in. Dorit is really, really pissed off. Her and Kyle are going at it tonight. Well, it seems like in some of the clips I've seen that Sutton's also in the mix. So there's just, Dorit's ready for whatever. I've said this from the beginning of the season. She came in guns a-blazing. She's ready to fight no matter what, and she's not taking any crap. That's clear. She's not taking any crap. But speaking of Beverly Hills, I saw that Kyle Richards was asked, well, she was asked a number of questions, but one of the questions was I guess LVP had said that in order for her and Kyle to basically reconcile their friendship, that Kyle would need to give her an apology. And no shocker there. I mean, honestly, like, I think that's to be expected of LVP. I don't think that we would have it any other way. But Kyle's response to that was essentially, okay, well, I'm not apologizing to her and I have no interest in reconciling, like, meaning, like, I'm not really pressed to be her friend or make up with her. And no, I'm not apologizing to her. So there's that. So if you were hoping for LVP and Kyle to rekindle a friendship anytime soon, I wouldn't hold your breath because it doesn't sound like it's gonna move forward. Uh, in other Bravo news, more importantly, Craig has finally spoken out after the breakup with Paige, and you know what? It's I can't help but feel really, really sad for the guy. His heart is clearly broken. But I will say he is exactly so when I initially talked about when the breakup was announced, and I said I do feel that these two have a genuine care and love for each other. I don't think there was anything malicious going on. I don't think it was really, no matter what the issue was internally, it's not really I don't think it matters at this point, but it's clear that, just listening to him discuss it and how he was just saying, like, making sure to say, like, don't send hate towards me or Paige, and just trying to keep it really, like, honest at the same time. So it was just sad. I felt for him. I really did, because like, it sucks. If you've ever obviously been through a breakup, you obviously understand, and every day is different. So I'm sure, it's still new, right? And that was what he was kind of saying. He was saying that, he's still processing things. And, what I didn't know, though, was apparently they had spent Christmas together. And the announcement for the breakup was on the 30th. So that's crazy. But yeah, so shout out to Craig. Get a pint of Ben and Jerry's. That always helps everything. But we need to jump into Potomac news really quick because I shout out to Bravo Snarkside on Instagram. I snagged the clip from them, but essentially, Robin and Giselle host their Reasonably Shady podcast, and they were discussing Karen Huger's DUI and the body cam footage, and essentially, well, it seems like Robin seemed, actually, it's much easier if you guys just listen.
I was like, ma'am, if this is being vindicated, I don't want to see what being guilty is like.
Well, you saw guilty. Actually,
Right.
there was the mini movie called Where Your Wig At is like guilty, like as charged. You're guilty as charged. We're laughing, but like it's very, very sad. It's just sad, right?
I mean, it's very sad. I hate to say it though. I don't think those that are familiar with that person were shocked by what we saw. I know.
So, real quick, I immediately understand that Robin, she already felt like, I don't want to say she felt good that Karen was shown in that light, but it's very clear listening to her that, well, one, she clearly wasn't shocked by any of it. And I think she's trying to also prove her point that, this is how Karen behaves, perhaps, and that nothing that was shown that she saw, at least, was anything that she may not have seen before, depending on, what the social situation was. But you can tell that there's like a little bit of like, you almost are happy for the downfall. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from Robin, and that to me, that rubs me wrong because, listen, if it's something that was going to be brought to the surface, then it played itself out. Like, you adding this layer of commentary is, to me, unnecessary, and it sounds very much, I don't know. It just sounds very mean-spirited, and it's like, you don't need to validate it more. Like, if you know that that's what it is, then that's fine. But like, to laugh about it, and then what I didn't keep in this clip was they actually play a part of the, I guess, the video where you can hear Karen when the night of the DUI, where she's in the cop car and she's like ranting. And, it's kind of just making a mockery of her. And it's really interesting that Giselle would choose to do this, knowing that that's clearly going to impact her relationship with Karen further. And I guess I don't understand. Like, are we supporting Karen? Do we really love Karen? If we don't, then why are we speaking about a tragedy and situation that she's ultimately going to have to deal with, right? We all can have commentary around it and have opinions all the day long, but listening to them go back and forth, just laughing, but then being like, but no, just in all seriousness though, it is sad. But you're just laughing and then you're making comments about her wig in that video. So it's just, to me, it seems very, I don't know. I wouldn't really feel good if we were longtime friends and you are on a podcast with someone who's basically coming off like they're basking in my downfall, which is really weird to me. But, I get it. They're reasonably shady, or, whatever they want to call it. But I don't know. To me, that's a fail. So, anywho, I don't know. You guys can let me know what you think. I think it's time we start trying to move on from the situation. Like I said, I think it was yesterday. Yes. When I was recapping Potomac, I feel like we need to go ahead and start wrapping this up. Wrap this up. Because there's nothing really going on. And it's just a pissing match for camera time. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of going down the Mia thing again, because we have other things to discuss today. But, I'm ready for it to be done. It's not really giving. But I do think it's mean-spirited. If Giselle is trying to get to a better space with Karen and show that, she can trust her, this is not, to me, I wouldn't trust her. And like, I would keep her at a distance, and perhaps maybe that's what's best. I'm not sure. But anyhow, we need to get into what the title says, because I have been enamored with everything regarding this whole situation. If you have been following me the last couple days, it seems like out of nowhere, I'm all of a sudden talking about this. But to be fair, it's very, very fascinating when you look at it. There's so many different angles you can look at the cases, the way they're being presented on both sides. And what's interesting is yesterday I posted basically a condensed version of what I discussed on yesterday's show. And when I posted it, so on TikTok, it seemed to be very much people listened to it from start to finish. They understood the points I was making and also understood that I was in no way discrediting her claims because of the things that I pointed out in that TikTok, right? And the comments show for themselves. Now, I posted that same piece of content on my Instagram, and within, I would say it's about at the 17-hour mark, I think at this point, I think Instagram, like, people were more caught up on hearing that I was piecing things together. And so it was almost like cognitive dissonance where it was like, wait, what? Like, no, those things can't be connected. So immediately it was framed that I was just giving a typical male response. And I mean, sure, I am a male and that's the response I gave, but I wasn't giving a response. I was pointing out and connecting things that to me seem like selective outrage or selective, I'm going to believe all women. And that's what I was not seeing in that sphere that she has around her or the connections to things. And so it's hard, and I'll be honest, I have really kind of hesitated on commenting on a lot of things because some things I do believe, critical thinking is super important because A, we're dealing with entertainment, Hollywood, celebrities. There's always going to be smoke and mirrors. So I just want to be clear that I am not here to discredit Blake Lively's complaints. I am here to look at it from both sides and see who presents what. They clearly want this to be very public, and they clearly want everything to be out there for the public to weigh in, which is what it seems is happening. So I just want to look at things from a different angle because I find them to be very interesting. But we can't discount having real conversations around certain things without it jumping to that now we're discrediting her. I'm not here to discredit anyone, and I'm not on anyone's side even still. Now, do I see that there's some, it's a close call at this point in terms of, putting the two sides together and looking at it objectively and critically? And in Blake's own words, right, I will say, I believe in due process then. But to me, that conflicts with, believing everyone's story. And actually, the response on Instagram was more in outrage to the connection I made about Dylan Farrow and how Blake worked with Woody Allen, notably understanding all of that ahead of time, but then saying, oh, but she believes in due process. So then are we then to say that that is a lie, that we're not to believe? And so my end point, I guess, which I guess people thought I meant to discredit her, and I didn't even bring up anything about her claim. It was more about the way in which she presents herself, and that to me is very interesting. So I am sorry for everyone that was offended or thought that I was anti-woman. I am not anti-woman. I absolutely stand with women 1000%. But I do believe that everyone should be able to give their side of something. And, if it's being presented to us in a public way, we're not having to dig for any of this information. It's very much out there. And, based on hearing how his lawyer is speaking, it seems like he's ready to go the distance. He is even talking in lingo, like saying like sound bites like receipts. He wants to put all of the information out there. He said himself, he wants the public to see it, read it all, and come to their own conclusion. And I'm just quickly going to say hello. Hello, Bruna. She says, I'm a woman. The "you have to believe in women above everything else" discourse is harmful to us. And listen, there's so many people that come forward with various claims, and are they always right? No. We've seen multiple times where people have tried to come out and make something look like something, and then when it's actually fully broken down and all the information's out there, people are like, "Oh, wait. Oh, hold on a second. I jumped the gun here." And just because you don't jump on the bandwagon of believing all women, because here's the thing, after seeing and reading and diving down all the different angles of studying predominantly just how both of them are publicly, right? How are they perceived? What is their brands? I did the whole deep dive and I pieced it together based on how they're handling their ends of the lawsuits, why one's doing it this way versus the other one doing it this way. So, and I find it interesting because clearly there's going to be way more that comes out. I don't believe this is it. Obviously, we know on Justin's side, it's not it because his lawyer is already saying he wants to put all the text messages out between him and, or sorry, Justin and Blake. So, and then you're starting to see people that are trying to advocate for one or the other. And in my opinion, they have people that are being paid to do that. I'm not interested in advocating for either side. So it's weird also to see the comment warriors that are out there just blocking whatever information. It's like they're blindly just going to be loyal to one side or the other. We have to, again, we have to be able to use critical thinking in these situations because there is a lot of smoke and mirrors and there is PR strategy around, yes, even how the lawsuits, in my opinion, were executed. Complaints, lawsuits, you get my drift. So let's first start at the top, okay? Let's start with the conversation around power dynamics. This is a big, big topic because people are coming at it from multiple angles, obviously, because they're looking at it from the angle of the sexual harassment complaint, right? Which ties into the retaliation portion of the overall complaint lawsuit. But the interesting thing is when you look at it, if you take a step back, right? Justin Baldoni, up until this all started to unfold, was relatively unknown. And again, I don't say that to be disrespectful to his professional background or his resume or IMDb. I've learned a lot of where he came up and what he's known for. And more importantly, I got to know him a little bit more on the, I guess he calls it the positive masculinity movement, where he's even written a book and he's really behind this whole thing about, stepping aside and really kind of empowering men to have more discussions around their toxic masculinity, which is that a bad thing? No, but do I also understand how it can be looked at and you can kind of be like, are you playing us with this? Like, are you really like, how can, because that throws people off. So I've seen people also come at it from that angle. Like, that's a little bit cringy. Like, they bring up his engagement video to his wife, which, okay, yes. Is it a little odd to have a 27-minute engagement video edited together? Perhaps, but maybe that was special for her. I don't think it's wrong or that makes it seem like that points him out to be some, that proves he's some weirdo or whatnot. Yes, it's quirky, but again, I hate to go back to astrology, but like he is an Aquarius with a Virgo ascendant. Very important because those two elements together is also playing into this, as well as Blake's. She's got a lot of heavy Virgo in, like, I think in her first house. It's like heavy Virgo, and then she's got the Leo ascendant. So that's why I said at the beginning of this is going to be super messy, and it's probably going to be something that should be put into like a PR course. Like people should study this when it's all said and done, because it is so public and all the documents are accessible. This could totally be studied, and we're not even in the like thick of it. So that's why it's fascinating to watch unfold, because things can change at the drop of a hat based on who submits what information next. So, power dynamics. Obviously, when you look at it between the both of them, right? Blake Lively, in my opinion, and you can look at the track record, you can't deny she has more power in the situation, in that she has very much wide reach and influence in Hollywood. She is highly respected, and she has a wide range of star power, right? She also, in terms of the reports that suggested that Blake had significant influence over production decisions, including the wardrobe and the editing, well, again, that plays into her level of wanting to, to be fair to her, be involved in something that she's also putting her name on, right? So she understands what she's bringing to this project. Let's be crystal clear. She's not someone that's new to this. She also understands, in my opinion, that when she walked into this, that perhaps it would be very easy for her to swoop in and take over, because maybe in her, strategically thinking, oh, it's a smaller studio, it's a smaller persona, if you will. So it maybe turned into, because from what I've understood and doing more research around even the book, the novel, it seems to me that Colleen's vision and Blake's execution during the marketing and the press tour were aligned. Now, obviously, it did not work well once people started unpacking what the story was about and all that. However, it's interesting because it's clear that, you see the angle of power where Justin started this relationship with Colleen organically, showed interest in the story, the novel, and ultimately got the rights to It Ends With Us. And so, but then to see the marketing of it and then people reacting to it, to me, I think that is where it's getting lost on who did what, in my opinion, because I think there was obviously two different press tours happening. We had Justin clearly sticking to what the movie and the story was about. Upon further research, it's clear he did his research on understanding what he needed to do to really kind of tell the story and make sure that it was through a woman's lens. And he really seemingly did all the research to really make sure that this was an authentic way to tell the story. So much so that I believe he didn't even use any sets. They really shot in real locations. Lily's flower shop was actually transformed by, I believe, some local florists for that whole, depiction from the novel. So he did, from my understanding in the research I did around him and his involvement making this movie, or prepping for it rather, was that he did pay a lot of attention to those details, but also made sure that female voices were present. Now, again, this is based on what has been presented and what I have found based on interviews, things that people filmed behind the scenes on set, conversations he's had in between. So is that all part of his strategy? Perhaps. If that's part of his brand, sure. Yeah, if he's known for entrenching himself in the cause, let's say, and he really wants to tell the story creatively in his mind, okay, as an Aquarius myself, it's not that it's not genuine or authentic. I do feel like he does care about the topics he's directing or producing in terms of storytelling. And I'm going to play you a video of someone who claimed to, work with him, and, she's going to share that experience. And that's when it made me kind of go back and look at his past projects and how did he handle press for that. And, my takeaway from that was, he's consistent. If a movie about someone who's got a specific disease, he's going to do all the things to make sure that it's from the lens of someone who's actually dealing with said disease, and so on and so forth. So yes, he has his own background in power, obviously, but when you look at it from the lens of putting Blake and him in a room, who's got more power in terms of like overall power? It's Blake. And couple that with she's married to Ryan Reynolds, who's also a big hitter in Hollywood. So yeah, that to me is very much a one and done. And even though, yes, Justin is a director producer, he has the rights to do the movie, or has the rights to the story rather. That still doesn't mean, and based on what is in these reports, like how she took over wardrobe and editing, she is confident enough in her value as, an actress, a producer, someone who can even be a costume stylist on set, right? Clearly, she styled her own wardrobe for her character. Now, did everyone love Lily's look? No, they didn't. But it is what it is. Now, when it comes to, Justin and his brand, the vulnerability brand and his like progressive advocacy, particularly on the gender equality front and the redefining masculinity, right? Trying to get men to have more open dialogue around their quote unquote toxic masculinity and try to help unpack that and be more vulnerable. That is very much Justin's brand. So you kind of see that in his public interviews. No matter what he's doing, he's played into that, and he's been very open with sharing things in his life, even with his wife, and sharing when they have the kids and all that. So he seems to be someone who's ready to put it all out there in hopes that it's going to help other men and just people in general open up to being better and being more unified as human beings. So, and that all sounds great, right? It's not the worst thing in the world, but I could also see how some of those dynamics could be a little bit like it's not for everyone. I understand that. And so I'm not discounting that. I'm not saying that is the pipeline. I'm just saying that is basically his brand. So with that, I just wanted to play you this one. I'm going to play a couple things, but there's one video because there was a woman who worked. I'll just play it. I've got it.
I do not know Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds on a personal level, but I do know Justin Baldoni. And what is going on with the whole marketing thing with It Ends With Us? It is a little sus, but I also don't know like the behind the scenes, so I can't really make comment to that. But what I do have an opinion on is the person that Justin Baldoni is. That is, he truly is the caring man that you perceive him to be. We have firsthand experience of watching him direct on set. In the film 5 Feet Apart, he invited us for a reshoot with Cole Sprouse. Why? Because my husband has cystic fibrosis and he wanted to make sure that whatever they were shooting in the hospital room was a true depiction of what it looks like for my husband and other patients. It was actually so cool to see the passion and the care that he had. Make sure that he was telling the stories of patients in the most honest and truest way. He even wanted us and other patient advocates to be involved in the PR of the movie. If you guys have seen any of the other movies that he directed, 5 Feet Apart, Clouds, and now It Ends With Us, the PR that he is doing now is no different than the PR that he did for the other movies.
So, as you saw, that was an example that I was kind of talking about when I said, and this is the video that actually made me go down that rabbit hole to say, oh, let me go look at his past projects. What else has he done? What other movie has he worked on? How did he deal with press around that in whatever context? And, I can validate he is very much about the message, and through, he's very authentic in the way that he wants to present it through the lens of storytelling. So, and then I saw another woman on TikTok talking about her experience, and her experience and her point was she is no longer in that world. She kind of interned at a, I guess, production house like she moved to LA and just was like, I'm gonna do this, and she interned, and basically it was before Justin was well known on any scale. He was still on the come up, but nonetheless, she's detailing an experience where she worked with him when she was a intern for this production company. So let's listen to her take on Justin Baldoni.
Actually moved to LA to be a stylist, and I worked on a small budget film at the time in which Justin was the star. This was the film, by the way. It was called Con Man. It was the story of Barry Minkow, who had the best carpets. If you look on IMDb, you'll actually see that the movie came out in 2018, even though obviously I just said we started filming it in 2009, 2010, right in there. This costumer pulled me to the side and was like, you're not to speak to the talent. You're not to look at the talent. You are only to, speak if you are like specifically addressed by me, by the costumer. Okay, so we go in to this fitting, and she's having him try some, various costumes on or whatever. And for one particular look, she says to him, "Oh, I think that looks really great." And I'm just there like, I don't know, like trying to hem his pants or something like that. And he turns and looks at me directly and asks me, "Hey, what do you think of this look?" And I was like, and I kind of started at first because I was like, am I supposed to answer? Like, what were the rules again? Like, do I answer him because he asked me? I'm not, the whole thing. And he kind of giggled a bit because I hesitated to say anything. And then I finally said, like, you look great. And this was our first interaction. Like, the guy did not have ego. He didn't have, he was never a diva about anything. Like, he was a joy to work with. And like,
so that was another person giving their experience working. She didn't work with him per se, but she dealt with him in some capacity. Listen, I'm not here to advocate again for either side. I'm trying to show you who these people come off to be to whoever it is that they are dealing with. And it seems that people's interactions, even stemming back from when the press of this movie was being done and things were backfiring on Blake and how she was dealing with her side of the marketing of the movie, there was just an influx of what seems to be organic content because it's actual people, and they don't seem to come off like they've been paid to give a specific message, because again, a lot of it is all random. It's people that either ran into him, at a Starbucks, or it's down to someone who was a production assistant on one of the movie or projects that they worked on, or someone who basically has gone to a screening and really has found that he is actually authentic to who he presents himself to be. So those were just some of the things that stood out to me when I was looking at it, because it showed a pattern of, okay, he is consistent in how he presents himself in his brand, right? Because that's how we're calling it. But what I also thought was interesting was, and we'll get into it, but there is a TikToker who was actually named in the complaint that Blake Lively initially put out through the New York Times when they did their article on all of this. And she coincidentally was, yes, she was named in it because they referenced it as part of her complaint in terms of like an example of the smear campaign, quote unquote, that allegedly was going on behind the scenes. So I want to quickly let you guys see the video that was linked in the complaint. And before I do, just to show you, this is page 47 of that complaint, and you'll see I've highlighted at Thick Jewish Girl TikTok, and then there's the link, and she had posted this video on August 17th, 2024. So this is just part of the layering of them showing like, hey, this is part of the smear campaign hit towards Blake. So let's hear what the video was and why it was so important for them to include it specifically in her complaint to showcase the smear campaign, quote unquote.
I went to the premiere of It Ends With Us. Justin Baldoni was there. I truly believe it is one of the best movies ever made. It touches on a very sensitive topic of domestic violence in the best way possible. And I am flabbergasted that with the huge audience that Blake Lively has and all of the press interviews that she's had, she doesn't once talk about domestic violence. I don't even know if I'm about to show you what I'm about to show you, but I really don't care. This man did not know that one person was recording. He was saying this simply for his audience that was there of like 30 people. Just watch.
I don't know what it's like to have to think about having pepper spray with me and to generally think about my safety. I will never have this lived experience. And so it was crucial for me and thinking about how to play Ryle to partner with an organization and with people that could actually help me get into his psyche, both as a filmmaker, right, and respecting the source material and wanting to honor and make something that had the ability to shed a truthful light on a situation that is kept in the dark, which is domestic violence. So we partnered with our friends at No More, who are actually here. Jane, right there, Jane.
So that was the video. Now, when I look at that video, that doesn't, to me, sound like a video that was put out there or promoted or scripted to be out there to say something bad just to smear Blake. I think this was an honest reaction from someone who clearly respects Justin's work and clearly respected that he showed up to this theater and was dialoguing in the way that he was and felt that he was super authentic in the way that he presents himself and his brand and how he presented the movie. So that was a little bit odd because I was like looking for something a little bit more. And I'm, obviously we bring up the Norwegian interviewer that was also named in there as part of being in the mix. But even that, to me, I question that in regards to a smear campaign because you can't make that happen. Those things were out there. They were these experiences that people started to come up with. Those things were already out there. So I have a hard time understanding how that shows that one video, which is an example, but how does that show that proves that there was some sort of smear? Where is there a smear in there other than her opinion on the fact that Blake didn't promote the movie based on what the movie was actually about and bringing more awareness through her promotion of the movie by dialoguing in the way that Justin was dialoguing about the movie? That's interesting to me. This was also very interesting to me.
I literally can't get over the fact that Blake Lively sold her rights to her cut of the movie to Sony. This is all in the Hollywood Reporter, by the way. And they bought those rights from Wayfair Studios, which is Justin Baldoni's studio. So at least he got paid for that. And the fact that she released her cut of the film in mid-June, following a Colleen Hoover book bonanza Q&A. So that's why there's multiple cuts to this movie. And I would assume why she wanted to make her own cut so she could sell it to Sony. And on top of that, the night that this book bonanza happened in June, Justin wasn't even there. So she released her cut of the movie to 2,000 people who were at this event without the director and the other lead even there. That just seems bonkers to me. And the movie didn't open until August 9th. So she aired her live cut to 2,000 people a full 6 weeks before it hit theaters at an event that Justin Baldoni was not at. Go read the Hollywood Reporter article. I've read it 3 times now. It's why.
So that's interesting, right? Why did that occur, right? Again, we go back to Blake was brought on as an actress. She was just there to play the role of Lily. But then it seems like it's spun into now it's Blake and Ryan Reynolds' movie, right? Because it's clear that they utilized it as another machine to promote multiple things, which was coincidentally also part of this backlash that she was facing during the promotion of this movie. Why are we getting promotional ads essentially on a movie that's about domestic violence, and here we are spraying dry shampoo into like a girl's hair right after our little interview for sound bites for the movie. It really triggered people at the time, and even now when they're looking back at all the interviews, because yes, it is a little bit daunting. And let's be clear, I went through all of that with Justin Baldoni in terms of his brand and how he presents himself, because, Blake's presentation and how she presents publicly is very clear as well. She's a relatable, girl next door. She's, a girl boss. She's all about empowering women. That is her brand. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. Just like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Justin's brand, because what he's promoting is positive. What Blake's brand is promoting seemingly is positive, right? Empowering women. Women rise up, speak up. If something doesn't feel right, say it. Trust your gut. Believe all women. Well, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. You guys already know I posted that video yesterday. But the point is that in terms of her brand, this is her approach. So they're going to play off of that, in my opinion, when they go to blows, which is what seems to be going on. But let's now talk about the PR strategy and how they're utilizing their brand to kind of help control the narrative on both sides, right? So Blake is clearly leveraging the media. She went to the New York Times, and basically, even if you look at the way that this whole thing even started is kind of dirty, just based on the way that the article or New York Times basically gave Justin's side 14 hours notice, and it was the night before Christmas. And I think allegedly they ended up, instead of saying that they were going to post it at noon, they posted it 2 hours earlier than that. So it gave them very much no time to have any sort of response. And so in my opinion, I believe strongly that that is, Blake's side leveraging the fact that, hey, let's use the machine of New York Times that brought down Weinstein, and let's get them on this. Let's get her complaints down, because again, nothing was actually legally these were just complaints, which again, putting it through a machine like New York Times would suggest to people that this must be true. It's the New York Times. Why would they even put something out like this if they didn't think any of these complaints had any merit? Rightfully so. So, in terms of strategy, that was very smart, because it gives a leg up. It doesn't give the other side a lot of time to go back and forth and try to come up with whatever. It's like they pushed it out, and they did it in such a public way that now the public is able to weigh in, because they also made it super accessible to download the complaint. So the next part of this is framing herself. So when you look at it from the perspective of how she came off during the press tour for the movie, people did not really buy into it, right? Now it seems that because of the way that the complaints are listed, and I've talked to a few different lawyers, asked their take on this one piece, but the majority of them have come to the conclusion that looking at it, it seems from the angle of the way it's being framed, that when you look at the entire thing, it is a lot of sexual harassment is in there, but in terms of it being able to be about retaliation, there needs to be some sort of merit regarding the retaliation, right? So the sexual harassment piece is instrumental in basically not having just a claim of retaliation, but then it doesn't add any weight when you don't have anything based on that to break. So adding the sexual, I'm not saying that, again, I'm saying that this is part of the way it's framed up in terms of how it's looked at when you look at the complaints, the way that I initially interpreted it. when I looked at it from a whole, and then when I asked other lawyers on YouTube and TikTok, respectfully, they all had similar takeaways. Like, yes, that is definitely a part of this for sure, but mainly this all stems from the retaliation, which then opens the whole discussion around the smear campaign. And so when you start looking at it from all of that, the sexual harassment claim needed to be in there in order for the retaliation to stick, the retaliation piece to stick. What else here? So by initially framing her allegations as a public complaint through a media outlet, Blake avoided immediate legal risk while still putting pressure on Justin in the studio. This allowed her to gauge public reaction before escalating to a lawsuit. Again, everything has been framed up at this point. I don't believe that they waited to do one thing at a time. Everything was framed up. So I would take away that from the way I'm looking at it, yes, it does seem like it was almost like a way to just get this fire started, give the other side little time, and then be able to test out what everyone's going to say, right? So interesting. And then in terms of Justin's PR strategy, now this is also something that I thought was interesting and really smart was, he's suing the New York Times, not Blake, right? So in doing that, it helps to maintain his brand of gender equality and what he stands for and what he advocates for. And he's he is very big into the feminist movement and is very much self-proclaimed in that. So this makes sense. He's taking the approach of saying, no, I'm going to go after New York Times because they didn't do their due diligence. Because ultimately, if he were to have gone after Blake, that would immediately look like he's retaliating because she's making these claims, in my opinion. And also, it appears that he's trying to balance his legal defense with PR damage control. So again, there's no bandwagon to jump on in my eyes because all of this is rooted in PR. It has to be. We're dealing with Hollywood. But yes, so then we get into, the way that the sexual harassment claim comes up. So again, we don't know how much more is going to be brought out in terms of what Blake's side's going to bring up. I'm sure they're going to bring out more. I'm sure that Justin's side is also going to bring up more. Like, his lawyer's been very vocal about that. The whole point is that in terms of how they're handling this, they're doing so in a way that it still protects their brand image. Now, I do think there are some questionable things when it comes to looking back on what they're claiming is a quote-unquote smear campaign. Now, I'm not saying everything's 100% right on Justin's side, because I believe that, the PR girls that are also fighting, that are involved in lawsuits, are also kind of in the middle of a mess. And so, it'll be interesting to see the full context from all angles, frankly, because that's really going to give us some insight as to what's really going on here, hopefully. But I do want to just play you some clips of why a lot of people had really horrible reactions to Blake during the press tour. So here are some highlights.
I think that the wardrobe was a really critical part of that storytelling, and I'm really, really proud of it. But I'm wearing like a ton of like Baldoni and vintage, and it's some of my favorite wardrobe I've ever worn. It's just like so expressive and eclectic and really gives you such a sense of the character.
People who see this movie, who relate to the topics of this movie on a deeply personal level, they're really going to want to talk to you. This movie is going to affect people, and they're going to want to tell you about their life. So if someone understands the themes of this movie, comes across you in public, and they want to really talk to you, what's the best way for them to be able to talk to you about this? How would you recommend they go about it?
Asking for like my address or my phone number or like my location share. Or I could just location share you, and then we could I'm just curious about
social security number.
I'm a Virgo, so I'm
Yeah.
like, are we talking logistics? Are we talking emotion? Us is in theaters now, so grab your friends, wear your florals, and head out to see it.
There's also this.
Lively is also being criticized for promoting her new hair care line, her sparkling water brand, and her husband Ryan Reynolds' newest movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, while out on this press tour.
So people were already talking about how she was promoting the movie. Okay. So to me, those are not things that were planted. I don't see how you could plant that. And as far as other past clips being resurfaced, other than someone going out and digging them up, sure. I'm sure anybody could be tasked with doing that. But at the end of the day, those are things that she did and said. So I still don't understand the correlation of how that ties into this whole smear campaign. But again, there's a big possibility that there's a lot more, and I'm here for all the updates because I'm going to be talking about it from every single angle possible because there is so many. And I know that a lot of you guys are also following the story, and I'm really interested in it. Honestly, I can't wait to see this play out because it will. It's going to be a very public event. And I do believe that this is something that is going to be studied. It needs to be part of a curriculum, like, I don't know, a test. You need a degree in PR. You need to somehow figure out this whole case. I don't know. But that is all that I have for you guys on today's show. We do have a new episode of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills airing tonight. So I will be recapping that on tomorrow's live. We also have a new episode of Real Housewives of New York. And yes, I have been tasked with getting back into recapping that. So I will be doing the short recap back on TikTok and Instagram, but I will focus the recap for tomorrow's show around Beverly Hills. What else? Also, thank you guys who are in the chat. Thank you for joining me every day at 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I love having you guys here. It means the world to me. If you guys enjoy this live, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel and make sure hit the notification bell so you don't miss when I go live. But I do go live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So please do join me. It is more fun when you're in the chat. All right, so I'm going to quickly say hello to some people that have been in the chat throwing out their opinions, and I love them for it. Hello, Lori. And she says, I am not one bit surprised that Robin would act that way. And exactly, I'm not surprised by it at all. Adam, hello, Adam. He says, people need critical thinking skills. I agree. Let's see. We did say hello to Bruna. And Bruna says, I had a lot of people not believing me when I came out with my sexual harassment complaint, but I had all the receipts and the guy had nothing because he was wrong. So he got effed by the law as he should. As he should, Bruna. And that's why, if anything, guys, what also has been validated for me is don't delete anything, screenshot everything. Even if you don't think you'll need it, you might. You might. Hello, P. P says Colleen was selling nail polish and coloring books during the promo tour. SMH. So that's the other interesting angle that I was speaking on at the top of the show was, it seems that in terms of the marketing of the movie, Colleen was very much aligned with Blake's vision because I think that's kind of how she wanted it kind of marketed, like how her book seemed to be marketed, right? So that to me was like a match made in heaven. What I think is kind of foul, if you look at it, is that like Justin's the one that kind of orchestrated that relationship, and perhaps Blake may have never come across Colleen Hoover. You know what I mean? But now somehow it's like, oh, she seems to be Team Blake for what seems to be obvious reasons based on what I found out and what I discussed about her, what her son's alleged allegations were. But nonetheless, it is what it is. We're going to keep watching this play out. But yes, thank you guys so much for joining me again for another live. It's been amazing. If you guys are dealing with snow, if you're in the DMV area, stay safe out there. It seems that they've really done a good job at clearing a lot of these roads and even the side streets. So thank you to all those people. But until tomorrow, guys, please stay safe, stay warm, and I will talk to you guys on the next episode, which will be tomorrow. Bye.
We need to talk about this. Every rumor, every twist on the Georgio Says podcast. We need to talk about. So hit that play, stay in the know. Georgio's here to steal the show on the Georgio Says podcast. We need to talk about this.